Honolulu, Hawaii, the island city where East meets West, a popular destination for tourists from Asia as well as the United States. This link with the two continents would become crucial in a case that began with a fire at a luxurious condominium high-rise overlooking Waikiki Beach.
The fire had been extinguished, and firemen had located the body of a female in a closet. The female was taken to the hospital where she was pronounced dead.
Firefighters thought the woman had tried to escape the fire by hiding in a closet before being overcome by fumes. But that was not how the victim died.
And at the hospital it was found that she had a through-and-through bullet wound in her chest. So that made it a homicide.
Investigators determined that the dead woman was the condo owner Kuratomi Fujita, a well-known Japanese psychic and socialite, meaning her death would be international news. Police began going door to door in the high-rise, thinking someone had to have heard or seen something.
When I got to the scene, some of the officers had taken statements from some residents, and some of them had seen a male leaving the apartment.
But just as the investigation at the condominium was getting underway, police were called to a second fire some 3 miles away. A car had been found engulfed in flames in the parking garage of the Park Shore Hotel, and this suspicious blaze had also produced a victim.
And after that fire had been extinguished, the body of a male was found in a right front seat. It was discovered that his feet were bound with duct tape, his hands were bound with duct tape, and he was wrapped up in some sheets. He had a bullet wound in his chest.
The body in the car was soon identified as Goro Fujita, the son of the murdered socialite Kuratomi Fujita. Investigators came to the obvious conclusion.
We looked at it at that point as being a double homicide involving the mother and the son.
When I found out who the victim was, I decided to get involved because I could see at that point in time it would have some international implications.
Police were unable to access the charred and waterlogged condo until the next morning. One bedroom had been ransacked, with drawers and suitcases thrown open. Was this a botched robbery? That theory gained strength when police learned that Kuratomi Fujita had made a phone call to her bank's president that afternoon with an unusual request that $20,000 in cash be sent to her apartment immediately.
The president told her, "This is the United States, he can't do anything like that." Kuratomi had indicated to the president that there was a Japanese male over there who was waiting for her. She said the money was important because a person's life might depend on it. Kuratomi asked the president to talk to this male that was in her apartment who could understand Japanese. And right about that time, the phone went dead.
The bizarre money demand seemed to support the detective's theory that this was a robbery gone bad. Police immediately began looking for surveillance tapes, only to find that the building didn't have a security system in the elevators. The charred apartment and the car were yielding no leads, and the police were forced to wait for a break. It came when some of Kuratomi Fujita's jewelry turned up at a local pawn shop.
These items were identified as belonging to Kuratomi Fujita. The person who sold her jewelry was Raita Fukusaku. He used his passport as a means of identification.
Honolulu detectives quickly learned that Raita Fukusaku had befriended Goro Fujita after the two met at a scuba diving club.
Raita Fukusaku was a Japanese national who ended up spending a good portion of his life living in the United States, and in particular California. That's how he and Goro essentially got involved together.
But the friendship had recently soured.
We found out that Raita Fukusaku had borrowed money from Goro Fujita and had not paid him back. My first instinct was he's a con artist, he's a scammer.
But when detectives went looking for Fukusaku, they discovered that he had fled the islands the day after the murders, spending $1,800 for a one-way plane ticket to Japan.
Well, the detectives started investigating Raita Fukusaku. They went to his apartment and found that he had abandoned his apartment and went back to Japan.
Police got a warrant to search Fukusaku's apartment and walked into what looked like a third crime scene.
There was something odd that I noticed, first of all, right in the middle of the living room. There was 4.5 by 7.5 foot portion of the carpeting that was cut out from the floor.
On the padding where the carpet had been removed, investigators found traces of blood. What was originally thought to be an apartment fire had quickly evolved into a double murder with at least 2 crime scenes, and now probably a third. Knowing such an intricate case would take expert analysis, prosecuting attorney Kenneth Kaneshiro turned to Dr. Henry Lee, the renowned forensic scientist.
When a case just happened, the police, emergency people will respond. One body after another, one fire after another. This case is a very complicated case.
With the crime scene photos in hand, Dr. Lee traveled to Hawaii for a first-hand look at the multiple crime scenes and to play his part in solving a double murder with international implications. In Honolulu, Hawaii, police were investigating the double murder of a wealthy Japanese socialite and her son. Their only suspect, Raita Fukuzaku, had fled to his native Japan. But no Japanese national had ever been returned to the United States to stand trial for murder. And when he was questioned by Japanese police, Fukuzaku denied any involvement in the double homicide, and the police took him at his word.
The first thing they told me was, you have the wrong person. And I said, no, I think we have the right person. He said, well, you don't have any confession. I said, yes, we don't have a confession. He said, well, you have the wrong person. In Japan, when they arrest someone, 99% of those they arrested confess to the crime. So I told the Japanese police, I said, well, Fukuzaku is not traditional Japanese. He's westernized. He went to school in the United States in California, so he has a mind of the Westerner, which is when you're caught with something, you always find an excuse or you blame someone else.
Honolulu police knew they didn't have the evidence yet to convince a Japanese court to extradite Fukuzaku. That was when they turned to the one man they thought could help.
My participation basically is to look into the scientific evidence and how the DNA can be used to the advantage of prosecution.
Because of the fire, the entire apartment had to be rebuilt.
Dr. Lee and Detective Glushenko reviewed the crime scene details of the fire at Kototomi's condominium.
Heavy smokestack. Now the smoke stand shows this fire was initiated from the closet.
Finding evidence linking Fukuzaku to the murders within a fire-ravaged apartment would be difficult. Next, Dr. Lee went to the Discovery Bay apartments where Fukuzaku lived, looking for a trail investigators could follow, and what they found was even better.